All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Momentum's virtual user group. We hope that you find this morning's session informative. Obviously, that's our intention, is to help give you useful information about MYOB Exo and about Momentum. We want it to be informative to you, pretty relaxed, so we're happy to take questions as we go. And so the agenda is a quick update from me about, I guess, Momentum and where things are at for our business over the last 12 months and going forward, what we're working on to help you. We have a special guest speaker from MYOB, whose name is Alison Fairkettle, and she's going to give you an update on MYOB news. And then we're going to get into information about MYOB Exo, what's happened over the past 12 months with improvements for Exo, and also what's on the horizon with improvements over the next little bit. Then one of our consultants, Mike, is going to show you how to do a few advanced things in Exo that you may not know, so we hope you find that really useful. We're going to touch on the add-on or app environment, which is constantly expanding and really can add a lot of value to what you already do. So we're going to talk about one of ours, but also touch on what's available in the MYOB App Marketplace that you may not know about. We'll introduce you to our consulting team. All of our Exo guys, I think, are going to be on. So you can put a face to the name of people that you might be talking to when you contact Momentum. Obviously, end of financial year is coming up, so there are processes to do in your Exo system, both in the financials area as well as payroll. So we're going to talk about that. And then we're going to talk about a couple of new things with the pace of change and businesses moving to the cloud. What does that mean for Exo customers, and what are the options there for you? We'll also have a Q&A so that you can ask any question you like. Could be, how do I do certain things in Exo? Or also we're going to have the opportunity to, I guess, put forward things you would like to see in the Exo product that we'll submit to MYOB through their Exo Ideas portal. So that's the agenda. Next slide, please, Morgan. So my name's Al Emery, Managing Director at Momentum. And we thought we'd just give you a quick overview of how our business has gone over the past 12 months, because it's been, an interesting journey for everybody in business, and also our clients. So all of our clients have weathered the COVID storm. We had very few that were severely impacted. Partly that might be due to luck or being in the right industries or not being in the wrong industries, I would say. So we don't have a lot of customers in tourism or accommodation. We've got a lot of businesses in all kinds of other industries. So it was good to see that customers have weathered the storm, and in fact, many of them have grown, which is probably reflective of the broader economy in general. Came to a rapid deceleration, but has recovered pretty well. Momentum has grown during that period, so we're about 12% up on prior year, and we're optimistic that that'll increase as well. More importantly, I guess from your perspective, we've continued to really focus on trying to improve our service to you. And we do that in a few ways. Obviously, the customer experience is most important to us, and Momentum operates on 4 key values, and customer for life is our number one. So we want to make sure that our customers have a good experience when they deal with Momentum, either right at the start of our relationship when we're implementing Exo in the first place, or on an ongoing basis when we're doing additional projects or upgrades or support. We've introduced much more regular account management catch-ups and touch points with our customers just to check on how things are going, how their business may have changed or grown, and what we can do to help accommodate that. And I'll touch on that in a bit more detail a little later on. We're also regularly communicating when Exo new features and upgrades become available, and that's an ongoing process, obviously. Not customers don't need to take every single upgrade that occurs, but we would suggest that one a year would be a good minimum, because for various reasons, and I'll touch on that a bit later, but it keeps you current, it keeps you having all of the latest Microsoft compliance, which is critical. It keeps your security aspects of the system up to date, as well as whatever new features and improvements and fixes MYOB have done. So very important to stay reasonably current with your Exo. We celebrate customer anniversaries, and you may or may not know, we have over 25 customers who've been using Exo for 10 years plus. So that really shows just how resilient our customers are, and also that Exo can stay with a business through quite major growth over that period of time, and we celebrate those. I'll show a slide in a few minutes about that. We've also spent a lot of time and energy and money on our internal knowledge sharing, so that our team all come up to a fairly equal level of knowledge on how to do how to provide our services to you. So the nuances of Exo that only Exo experts know, and making sure that that information is easily available to all of our team. We also started a new office in Brisbane. That was probably about 2 years ago, but we've now built that up to a consulting team of 6 in Brisbane, and we expect to grow that further. We ticked over 11 years in business, hired 10 new people, and moved to the cloud, like many other businesses. So what are we doing in the next 12 months? Much of the same and more. So we obviously want to continue getting better, making sure that customers who are using Exo are happy with Exo and getting the most out of it, by continuing to roll out those upgrades that MYOB make available to you. Also enhancing what Exo can do via momentum add-ons and other customizations that we do. That's something we do every day. And helping customers be aware of what's available more broadly. So what other things integrate with Exo that might help you. That's an ongoing process that we do. And obviously keep our professional development for our team happening, so that we can keep getting better at what we do. Also talking about providing cloud options for businesses who are looking to move off their on-premise server. That's common these days. Having your own or purchasing your own software server is becoming less and less prevalent, and using cloud or hosting options is becoming more and more prevalent. And we do have some Exo customers talking to us about changing to the cloud ERP called MYOB Advanced, so we'll touch on that as well. I'll just pause there. These are some of the shots from our client anniversary. So not sure if any of you on the call have ticked over for a 5 or a 10-year anniversary, but we really like to celebrate those with our clients. And I think it's something we do a nice extra to really celebrate customers staying the journey with momentum. And we really appreciate everybody who achieves that sort of milestone. So just quick pause there. If you do have any questions or comments on the intro, then feel free to raise your hand or fire away. Great. So next we have our guest speaker, Alison Fairkettle. Alison is the MYOB Channel Sales Manager based on the Sunshine Coast. So we work quite closely with her, and Alison is going to provide you all with an update on MYOB. Over to you, Alison.
Thank you, Al. It was a great introduction to yourselves, Momentum, and also great to see the growth and the focus on continual development and continual improvement for yourself as a business. I do live on the Sunshine Coast, but I have not been to Bunnings or the shopping centre where that person has come up from Victoria, so I'm safe. So I won't spend too much time on actually the brand because MYOB itself has been around for 30 years and a bit of a household name and one of the most trusted brands in many of those surveys. But there's some detail that I think is important to refresh ourselves with. For MYOB, our reason has always been to help businesses start, survive and succeed. So if you're not succeeding, then neither we and neither our business partners. So we're laser focused on this. We are entirely ANZ. So a lot of our competitors are maybe global businesses or American businesses coming into the Australian market. We are entirely deliberately ANZ focused. And anyone that's had to work with tax or compliance, payroll services all know that to be specific to this market is really, really useful. We have a team of over 2,000 people across 8 offices, Australia and New Zealand. And we have an office in Brisbane here in Queensland. And at the start, if MYOB are only successful when our clients are competitive and successful. So we spend a lot of time and investment advocating for businesses and what matters to business. From digital enablement and adoption to accessing finance, we have sort of financial loan companies in our family, and the future of work and well-being. And as it relates to budget or policy changes, we have significant political muscle to lobby in terms of state and federal policy development. Have the next slide, please, Morgan. And so specifically for enterprise, in terms of where we are at today, we've got over 11,000 enterprise customers, with 4,000 of those using our ERP products like Exo to power their respective businesses. Our customers range from manufacturing, construction, retail, wholesale and distribution, and professional services, and we're continuing to build out that vertical industry focus all the time. On the ERP side of the business specifically, we manage around $11 billion in transactional revenue generated from businesses like yourselves each and every month. And we have over 65,000 people using our ERP products every day. When you look at that data point on the screen as well, 1.3 million employees are paid through our MYOB payroll products, which is just outstanding. So whilst we're known, the brand is well known for servicing SMEs, the enterprise part of the business, which we're all part of, is growing at more than 35% year on year with our ERP and payroll solutions. And linked back to what Al was saying earlier, through COVID, this accelerated a lot of decisions businesses made about the technology they used. And so it really put our business and therefore our partner businesses supporting you guys in a really strong position and set up for the future. So next slide, please, Morgan. So in terms of overall our product strategy, it is about growing and developing and building out those vertical markets and giving more and more services to our clients like yourselves. So in terms of we like to acquire or partner with technology businesses, one in particular in workforce management. So it means that we can offer the ERP, the payroll and workforce management. So you can take really your employees from onboarding all the way to working through your business and out the other end and enhancing their journey working for you as well with the rostering, with the HR elements and looking after employees as well, which is so critical when teams are more remote and disparate these days. So we're more than just accounting, and there's always accounting software. It's more than just accounting, more than the financials. It's full business management solutions. And as Al mentioned as well, the connected side, and he'll talk about these options a bit more later, that we have a whole ecosystem of specialists in perhaps debt collection or particular industry expertise that can work with Exo and the other ERP products to really build out what's required for your business and have that best practice, individualized specialization to really make your business software hum. And just reinforcing that we are ANZ experts, because there aren't many businesses that are, and we're really proud of that. So that's a really quick whiz through. As I said, we're continually growing in the enterprise space, which means we can offer more and more services to our partners and you as our clients. So yeah, feel free to shout out, ask questions, and work with Momentum as well on what's next for your business and how to get the most out of the software. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Alison. So next on the agenda is an update about MYOB Exo. Next slide, please, Morgan. So firstly, it's always relevant just to look back into the recent past to see what's changed, what's occurred over the last 12 months. Usually there are anywhere between 3 and 4 Exo releases per year. And as I mentioned earlier, customers don't need to upgrade to every single version, but we think it's a really good idea as a minimum to upgrade once per year. That way you're always close to compliant and close to the newest version for the reasons I mentioned earlier. So last year there were 3 key releases, and 2020.1 had a real focus on a more modernized look and feel for the application, and that went across all the modules. So the user interface, it's only a one-line entry on the slide there, but there's a lot of work went into that to keep Exo looking refreshed and modern. So there was a lot of modernization of the user interface, which happens when you have that upgrade. That went right through to just some subtle things like shading of rows. So when you're looking at a table of data, it's a bit easier on the eye with a bit of shading. Toolbar and menu icons were refreshed and modernized and simplified. Drop-down menus as well. And the shortcut icon. So it was a very graphical refresh of Exo. And a lot of our customers said that they really, compared to older versions of Exo, it was like, turning on a light in a dark room, having that update. 2020.2 completed that work. And then 2020.3 introduced cash flow reports. Now, cash flow reports, there's 2 kinds. There's a historical statement of cash flows and there's a cash flow forecast. The cash flow reporting that was done in 2020.3 was a historical statement of cash flows, which is a financial statement style report that had never been available before in Exo. It can be quite challenging to produce that style of reporting in an ERP, but it was a good piece of work that MYOB delivered into Exo that I would suggest not a lot of clients have necessarily taken advantage of yet. There is a video relating to that, and I might just check, Morgan, how are we travelling for time?
Yeah, we're going okay.
Okay. We'll touch on that quickly. And then the first release this year, 2021.1, was, stay on that slide. Email encryption updates. So a number of those versions actually included, not necessarily listed here, updates to security within Exo, particularly into how it interacts with its SQL database. And the highlight in the 2021.1 release was improvements to sales order deposits, which I would have to say worked, but in some cases were a bit problematic depending on how they were used. So a lot of work went into using deposits related to sales orders, and in particular, making the visibility of that deposit against the sales order transaction much clearer, allocation of that deposit and even reallocation of it. So a scenario might occur where you've taken a deposit on a sales order, invoiced that sales order and applied the deposit to the invoice. But then for a particular reason, the invoice might need adjusting. So you need to unapply that deposit, adjust the invoice and reapply it. That was a little problematic in earlier versions of Exo, and that's all quite nicely done in this latest version. So particularly any clients on the session today that are using deposits on sales orders, the 2021 release would definitely be worth taking. We'll make this link available to everybody so you can have a look at it. It's also covered in the release notes on the Education Centre as well. So yeah, previous slide is what's been done over the past 12 months. Current slide is what's the roadmap or work in progress relating to improvements to Exo. So the top section where you can see the purple on the left, obviously MYOB need to keep MYOB Exo compliant with any new legislative requirements. That happens obviously on the payroll side a lot and on the ERP side at times. This year, a requirement is for payments time reporting, which is new legislation introduced by the ATO where large companies, and that's defined as companies turning over $100 million or more, must report to the ATO the time it takes them to pay smaller companies through their accounts payable. So that obviously requires development in Exo to provide reporting files back to the ATO. It will work probably similarly to single touch payroll, where a file is transmitted to the ATO on a regular basis to provide them with the information that's required under the Act. Now, that's still under development, but obviously needs to be delivered in time for when that legislation becomes mandatory. Doesn't affect all of our clients because not all of our clients turn over $100 million or more, but many of them do. So obviously the software needs to be compliant. The others are not super well defined, but the next slide does cover it. So there are incremental improvements happening with Exo in every release, and they come predominantly through customer feedback through the partner channel. Now, we have access to what's called the Ideas portal, where enhancement requests that are put to us by customers are registered there as enhancement ideas for Exo. Those are then voted on by all of our consultants and other business partners. And MYOB, in addition to their own market research on what's needed, then evaluate the highest voting ideas and add them into the roadmap. One of the items that has been captured, which we do get feedback on pretty regularly, is improving the subledger reconciliation relating to inventory or stock. Depending on the inventory method you use and how the system is used, there certainly is some improvements required there, and that's certainly on MYOB's near-term roadmap. Next slide, please, Morgan. So the next release that's due is the 2021.2 release, which will include the payments time reporting able to be used by those clients that are required to meet that legislation. Each release, apart from improvements and enhancement, includes any fixes. So we're expecting a bunch of those. And there are about 15 plus enhancements through the Ideas portal. And I guess some of the improvements of note is increasing the functionality relating to extra fields, having the ability to restrict certain users from seeing tabs on some screens. So an example of that is the job costing module currently allows you to hide different tabs, quote tab, timesheet tab, cost tab, but other modules don't necessarily have that same functionality. So looking for some more granular ability to restrict information to people who should have access to it. Excluding Exo admin from the license count, so makes sense. Exo admin is kind of the super user or administrative user that's often used when configurations are being done, and arguably shouldn't be treated as a real user, which prevents other people from logging in. Restrict overriding of GST for creditor invoices. So interesting one. A common error we see with people reconciling their BAS is where a supplier's invoice has multiple lines on it, some of which have GST and some of which don't. And we do see a common error where the GST is changed on a line to be not 10%. In reality, it should always either be 10% or zero. And sometimes it's just a training or education thing, but it sort of makes sense to allow a profile setting in the system so that people can't do that. It saves a lot of rework and error correction later. History notes on processed sales orders. So scenario there is a sales order has been dispatched and even invoiced, but additional information might need to be recorded later about when it was delivered, who delivered it, was there a query on it, and at the moment, because the sales order is treated as completed, you can't put any notes on it, so it makes sense to do that. And also a highly requested one is business alerts on inwards goods costing and receipts. Now, if you don't know, a business alert is a feature of Exo that allows you to, I guess, define what your business rules are for certain transactions and make sure that people can't breach those rules. Alerts can do a lot of things, but that's one of them. So you can have what's called a blocking alert, which says you can't do that. You need to do something slightly differently or correct what you've done. A warning alert will warn the user you shouldn't do that. And a silent alert will just email somebody that a certain event has happened. And inwards goods is an area pretty common where errors might occur because someone's received something in with the wrong unit of measure or the wrong quantity or the wrong cost. And it can have a big impact on stock valuations and everything else. So we've been very keen to get additional controls in place for inwards receiving. There is a API change, which is removing some insecure TLS protocols. Now, you would have to have somebody more technical than me explain what that is. But in simple terms, the Exo API, which if you're using it, requires an API service to be installed on your server called Exo Business Services. And within that, it uses protocols to communicate with the cloud-based API that MYOB have. Now, part of that requires ongoing security maintenance. So any insecure TLS protocols will be removed, and that will happen in November. Whatever needs to happen on your server can be done well in advance of that by installing the latest version of the Exo API, and then the rest is kind of invisible. So what's coming after the 2021.2 release is, we're currently involved in working groups with MYOB on improving the inventory reconciliation. And I would say the same with job work in progress reconciliations as well. And some of the other popular ideas through the ideas portal is a site lockout capability. And presumably that means that a system or admin user at the client can lock out certain users who, if they've forgotten to log off and they're using a license. I would mention that our little add-on called Easy Maintenance that most clients have already has that capability. So a lot of our clients already use that. Other Exo features that we look forward to receiving is the ability to reverse depreciation. So if you're using the fixed asset module, do a depreciation run, and then subsequently realize that there were assets set up incorrectly or assets excluded, you have to do manual adjustments currently. Being able to reverse the depreciation batch in full so that you can redo it would be a useful way of dealing with that. And we've had a number of customers ask for that. And the same with a direct credit payment run. So you're doing a batch payment to your creditors. Again, it's not that uncommon that someone subsequently realizes something was wrong. Supplier has since changed bank details or whatever the scenario might be. Having the ability to just completely reverse that entire payment run and redo it would be useful. The other one is more enhancements to deposits, so where a single deposit could be entered and then applied to multiple sales orders. So businesses that are getting paid up front by customers and customers of multiple orders would be a nice feature. That's certainly not all. There are usually a number of other improvements, but those are the highlight ones. Thanks, Morgan. So the deprecation of the insecure TLS protocols, as I mentioned, it's a security issue that needs to be met. MYOB need to deprecate effectively means remove any insecure TLS protocols from any of their APIs across all of their products, of which Exo is one. Microsoft, Google, Amazon are all needing to do the same thing. And it really just happens by way of a new version of the Exo API that gets installed. And really, instead of being an optional upgrade, you will have to take that version of the Exo API if you are using the API. Now, I would point out that the Exo API installer does not mean you have to upgrade your Exo business. It's like a standalone little application that runs. So don't be too concerned about the impact or the having to definitely do an Exo upgrade in that time frame. You probably should do an Exo upgrade in that time frame, but the API is a separate installer that we can do standalone. Okay, just wanted to touch on add-ons. A lot of customers use add-ons, but a lot of customers don't even know about add-ons or even think to look. And one thing that we would say is that there's two kinds of add-ons. And what you're seeing on the slide there is a website called the MYOB App Marketplace. And on that website, you can browse or search for apps that you might need or want that integrate with Exo and have already been accredited by MYOB. Now, they cover a whole range of areas. I'll mention a few common ones. Accounts payable automation is more and more a common thing. So accounts payable automation is you want to remove the data entry from your accounts payable process, e.g., not having to enter a supplier invoice. And that usually works by a third party using OCR technology to take the data out of that PDF invoice that the supplier may have emailed and insert it into your system as an accounts payable invoice. And that can be done in quite a sophisticated way, including matching against a purchase order that you might have for that good or service and a receipt that you've got in Exo for that good or service. Really great time saver, has approval hierarchies within it. Number of our clients are using that service. More advanced reporting or reporting that you can do yourself is another one. And there's a few reporting tools that integrate with Exo. One is called Focus BI. One is BI for Cloud. Another one is called Alchemex, which is an Excel-based reporting tool. So I won't go through them all individually because you can browse them at your leisure. What I might just do very quickly, I'm just going to share my screen very quickly, Morgan. That one. So this is the MYOB App Marketplace. And the way that I use it is you can browse apps by product. So if you go Exo, then you'll only see add-ons that work with Exo. You can still search for different types of add-ons. And it's just basically myob.com.au/apps. But if you filter by product, then you can see all kinds of applications that work with Exo, already integrate with Exo, and many customers around Australia and New Zealand are using them. Obviously, depending on the type of business you're in, you may be interested in very different things. I will also mention Expense Manager, who have an expense claims app that integrates with Exo. Okay, so that's enough from me for a little bit. Next, we have Mike Ward, who's a senior consultant in our Exo team, been with us for many years, and Mike's going to take you through a few Exo tips and tricks.
G'day everyone, Mike here. Today we just got about 10 minutes roughly. We're just going to whip through some tips and tricks. I'm just going to focus mainly on the sales orders, little tip on inwards goods order costing, and a bit on around distribution advantage, batch sales order line processing. Everybody okay with that?
Yep.
Sounds good. I'll just share my screen. So everybody see that okay? That's the just a demo database I'm using. I'm just going to go into create sales supply sales orders. And I've set up one that I've put onto a back order already. And I've also applied deposit for the sales order. I'll whip one up anyway. I'll just copy this one and create another one. But I just point down to the bottom of the screen. You can see now deposit percentage and deposit total, which is the two new fields MYOB have added to this version of Exo. To add an order, I'll just copy one as I was mentioning. Let's copy this one. Put these items on back order. When I save, depending on your profile setup, you'll be prompted for entering a deposit. So if I go yes, I'll enter one. I can put in the amount of my deposit, so I just put it $100, and I'll save that. Okay, so you'll see down the bottom now it's got a deposit total of $100 sitting in there. So that's all good. What you can also do is this, I'll just move another document to the screen. Oops. You can also do a couple more things with the deposits. You can assign profiles to them. So you can assign a deposit to a debtor or a creditor. A debtor, a sales order, or a debtor themselves. So the deposit stays with sales order. Hence, if you go in and you change its account and put it to a different debtor, the deposit will flow through to that debtor. If you leave it on the sales order as a profile, it'll keep sales order. So you've got a profile sitting in Exo, you can change those. Any questions around sales orders and deposits? That is all good. Okay. One other tip we'll give is around the auto costing of a purchase. So if we go into a purchase order, oops, just change my share of my screen. So I've just gone into purchase order. I'm going to create a new one. Item onto it. For now. Okay, depending on your profile setup, you'll see at the top you've got inwards goods receipts and receipts buttons. Use inwards goods receipts more for the stock items. So when you're receiving the goods in, and I'm just going to receipt them all, you'll see at the top you've got auto or manual costing. The tip around here is only use auto for local type and when you don't want to put on cost. The reason is when you go into it, let's get receipt all, cost all, invoice all. There's no option, it'll just take you straight through to the, if you create invoice, which I have, it'll take you straight through to the invoice screen and not allow you to add on costs. So as you can see now, I'm sitting in the invoice screen. So I'll just put in an invoice number and save that. Now, if I do it through a, make sure I just copy that one quicker. I create a new purchase order. Can you see that purchase order? Okay, should be all right. If I go in with this receipt now, I receipt all, I choose on costing or manual, which gives me the ability to choose on costing. So at this stage, I can add in things like freight, even if it's local freight, I can add duty, and I can add amounts for them. So with auto, it'll just take you straight through to the invoicing stage if you click on the invoicing. The other requirement or tip is if you do use that auto, make sure your prices that the supplier has given you are the correct prices, near as correct as they can be. Reason being, when it goes through, obviously that's going to be the cost that appears on the credit invoice, and any variances, etc., going against that credit invoice compared to what the purchase order was raised at can only be changed at that time. Here you can change the supplier price. At this time I can make it $55 for instance. So it's at the inwards goods receiving side. Okay, so those are the main two reasons why when you use the auto. If you're doing manual costs, on costs, please use the manual option. Any questions or comments around that? Okay, moving on, I'll show you another little utility that's not used that often, that is very handy, which is distribution advantage. What this utility enables you to do is bulk or batch sales order line processing. What that means is for a sales order or multiple sales orders, you can do it through a little batch utility. It's just opening at a moment. I'll drag it over. So that's in this utility here. It comes with Exo and it's called batch sales order line processing. These are a bunch of tasks that are already set up in the batch order sales order line processing, bit of a mouthful there. But you can copy and create other ones yourself. So these are little rules. I'll take you through one in a second. So you go into setup tasks. I've created a new task called it gold. These are my most precious customers who I want to flag and give them the stock if stock's available once it's released from back orders. before I give it to any other customers. So I might have a sales order, a bulk bunch of sales orders, but I've only got a limited amount of stock, and then I can release it to this person. What you can do in here, this is a bit technical here, but you've got what can be done with SQL, which is making these rules anything you want. So I've created a new group, assigned it as a secondary group to a customer. I'll show you the customer set, and I've put a little bit of SQL in there to say, for this batch order line processing, only grab my gold customers. Okay. This has got a wizard, so when you go through, you can actually utilize the wizard to flow through and create a new batch order line processing task. You can assign certain locations. You can do certain sales order statuses, e.g. the one I'm using at the moment's batch order line processing. You can select certain sales order lines. I could have flagged this to have back orders only, so to I'll only pull those ones up in this group of sales order lines that come through. You can select certain branches, so I can go in here and go, okay, give me Melbourne, Fiji, etc. And you can select certain stock codes or stock groups. You can select ones with serial numbers or lookups. You can select certain suppliers, so I can go in and select supplying from only certain suppliers, and then you can finish to complete the wizard. I know I'm working through this pretty quickly, but it all makes sense in a second. So I've got a data I've set up. I think it was this one. Yeah. So I've set up a new group for my debtors. I've just set up a couple actually. I've got a gold and a silver, so I can say, okay, these are my primary customers, these are my gold ones. I want to release stock to them before I release them to anybody else. And then what I've done in the DA, I've created a sales order for them. I can go click on new, and it says what do you want to do? I want to do a batch from a task. It brings up a list of available tasks, batch order sales line processing tasks. I'll select my gold one. Tells you what your wizard's going to do. I've also made it so it's going to print picking documentation as well. And you can see the criteria it's set in there. Here's my little bit of scripting I put in there, mainly to grab that account group where it's gold. So I continue from there. Coincidentally, I've only got one customer set up. If you have multiple customers and multiple supply orders, you'll be pulling them all from here. And so you can process it all just from this one screen for any sales order lines you want to release. So I've got one back order here. So they have multiple, I've processed them already. And then you can just process it all. You can post your stock movements, you can post your tax invoices, so that'll post your stock, your GL, as well as your invoicing. And away it goes. So if you've got hundreds of lines being processed, hundreds of sales orders, obviously this is a nice quick way to flow them through. Come up with warnings if you've got warnings against your debtors. So it's into executing batch 10, complete. What it's saying now is you finish, you process the batch order, do you want to delete it? If I go no, close that down, come back into the my batch sales order line processing. It's just a little historic log that's sitting in there saying this is what I've just processed. If I hit delete it, it's the same as doing this. Delete this batch, yeah. So it's all processed, all flowed through. Any questions around that process? You can set it up in your test system, have a play, set up some business rules. If you need a hand, we can give you a hand if you want to do something a bit more technical, i.e. a bit of SQL in there. You can also, I did mention this just before, do pre-processing of SQL, which you can do anything. You can update statuses, you can update categories, fields, categorizations. As you can see, my process defaults, so I can set those to packing slips, tax invoicing. But the technical side, if you just want a bit of a hand to do the weird part of the SQL for your task, just let us know and we can give you a hand. No, it's very quick, but let's batch order sales line processing.
That's good, Mark.
Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Mike. Just shows the configurability of Exo in relation to sales orders. Obviously, not every single thing we show today is applicable for everybody on the group because we've got different businesses that use different parts of the system, but we're trying to keep it pretty broad. One thing we're going to show now is an add-on of Momentum's called Approval Advantage. The reason why we wrote that is Exo has some basic approval functionality where you can have purchase orders requiring approvals, and you can also have creditor invoices requiring approval. Now, they both work. They work fine. The delegation of authority or the way the approvals are configured is relatively simple. So a person has a dollar limit per purchase order or per invoice that would be applied. And if the order or invoice exceeds that value, then it needs to be approved by someone else. So what it doesn't have is more configurability around who can approve what or who can't approve what. And also multi-company. So if you have multiple businesses, you would have multiple Exo databases, and part of the original design of a Momentum Approval Advantage is to give approvers, be they CFO, senior manager, company owner, director, the ability to review and approve things across all of their Exo companies in one screen. So that was one of the other fundamentals that we included in our Approval Advantage module. Now, I'll just share my screen quickly and we'll take you through that. Okay, so this is Momentum's website. We have an add-ons page, and if you're interested in Momentum's add-ons, you can scroll down there and you'll see Momentum add-ons that we've written, and also links to many of the other add-ons that are on the App Marketplace. I won't go through all of the Momentum add-ons just now. One I mentioned just earlier, which supports what Mike was talking about, when you're trying new things or configuring new parts of Exo, our Easy Maintenance module allows you to copy your live system to a test system anytime you like. So even if you've got a transaction you're not sure about and you're worried about corrupting your live system, you can copy live to test, play around with it there, make sure you get it right, and then do it in live. Approval Advantage, I'll quickly show you some of the features of that. So like all of our add-ons, it's a custom developed screen that Momentum has written, and it launches from a menu in Exo. So all of our Momentum add-ons sit on a Momentum menu, and Approval Advantage would launch like that. And then what you can see in this screen is for each of your Exo companies, and in this case there's only one, but we've got customers with 5 companies, and all of the things they need to approve for all of those companies are shown in one screen. You can see there's a radio button at the top, so you can check creditor invoices that need approval or purchase orders that need approval. And you can also filter by status. So show me the things that are awaiting approval, I've queried, or even things that have been approved or rejected. So you can filter that screen. I'll just kick the video off again. Now, another thing it supports is the part of the setup is to which Exo companies are included in the setup. And also it supports automatic filing of the PDF invoices. So you set up a folder on your server, you can drag and drop PDF invoices onto the main grid, and it will automatically file them into a folder which is named for each supplier and then each financial year. You don't have to do anything, you drag and drop, and our solution will move it to that folder for you. In the security setup, this is where the additional functionality really kicks in. So the different approvers can be given approval limits for stock and non-stock POs as well as invoices. But then that can be limited to specific branches within your companies, which means that person A can only approve things in branch 1, 2, or 3, but not 4, 5, or 6, for example. The standard Exo functionality doesn't handle that. You can also give people the ability to be an approver, a viewer, or none. So this is where you can select the branches they're allowed to approve. And then when I'm an approver, as I mentioned, the drag and drop functionality. So if I've got a PDF invoice, I drag it and drop it onto the actual transaction in the grid that it relates to. And that will automatically put this hyperlink in here so that someone who's approving it can view the actual source transaction. And that PDF behind the scenes has automatically been filed in the right location. Okay, so this is an example of, I've got my scanned PDF invoice in a temporary folder. I drag and drop it, and then it's automatically moved. It's also renamed from whatever its original name is to the invoice number with a PDF extension, and then can be viewed from the grid by the person who's approving it. So they can see the source transaction. Do they want to approve it? Do they want to query it? Or do they want to reject it? So if they query it, they can put notes in to say, what the hell is this? The price is higher than I expected. And you can have a dialogue backwards and forwards with date-stamped notes. So that's the approval advantage part. So it really extends the standard functionality of Exo across multiple companies with a proper delegation of authority and approval workflow. And then we recently extended it to allow requisitions. Now, Exo has a quite good purchase order feature. It doesn't have a requisition feature. So requisition being a person in the business needs to procure something to be used by the business, will ultimately become a purchase order, but is not a purchase order yet. So we've built a requisition screen, which looks very similar to the standard purchase order screen. So I can create a new requisition, pick my supplier, that will populate the delivery information like a normal purchase order screen would, pick how those goods or services might need to be delivered, so it supports extra fields like you normally have in Exo, and then add the items that might need to be ordered or approved for ordering via the requisition process. It supports the feature where the item that the person might want to procure doesn't even exist as a stock item yet, so you can create a miscellaneous stock item and the approver later can convert that. The rest is very similar to how Exo purchase order works, so item, description, quantity, price. You'll see up in the corner here where it's got who's the person requesting the item. So the person is logged in as Momentum, so that's why that says Momentum, and who's the authorizer. Now that will default automatically, and it can go to a specific person or to what we would call a security group, where several people within that group could authorize this. On save, an email notification goes to the approver. So the requisition is a trackable document in the system with a number. We're also supporting document attachments. So down in the bottom left-hand corner, you can drag and drop. So a common scenario is, as a part of doing a requisition, you might get a quote from your supplier or a price, and you can pop their quote number into that and attach their document, either by dragging and dropping an email or attaching your PDF, drag and drop, and that will store that against the requisition. Requisitions then become part of Approval Advantage. So we've extended approvals to cover invoices, purchase orders, and requisitions. So you can filter on requisitions needing approval, all of exactly the same workflow that Approval Advantage has. Once it's approved, and this is a configurable option to say, approved requisitions are automatically converted to purchase orders, or the alternative is that the person approving it can open it and then manually convert it. So that's a quick walkthrough of our Approval Advantage and requisition module. So, you know, the Approval Advantage really comes into play if you're wanting to take more control, and you can reshare your screen, Morgan, more control over the value of purchase orders and invoices that are getting approved, and the requisitions is an optional extra that you can have with Approval Advantage to provide that requisition functionality. Now, we're running probably a little bit over time, but not going too bad. We're going to pause for our break for 10 minutes. Before we do, if you do have any questions right now relating to anything we've covered so far away, we are having a dedicated Q&A session at the end of the session as well. So we'll see you in 10 minutes. Welcome back, everybody. We might just give a couple more seconds for people to come back, and we obviously want to make sure that you can put a face to the name. So we wanted to introduce you to our Exo consulting team, many of whom are on this session with us today. Next slide, please, Morgan. Yep. So our Exo team is 8 people, and they're made up of Adam McGill, who's one of our senior consultants. Adam's away on a break at the moment. We have Mike, and as I introduce you guys, if you're on this, if you could turn your video on. So yeah, introduce you to Mike. Mike has many years experience working with Exo in both a functional and technical capacity, done all kinds of implementations, customizations, reports, dashboards, many things. Hey, Mike. Next, we have Sean Williams. Sean's more than an Exo consultant, also been a business owner in his own right, and been with us for about 8 or 9 months now. And Sean is also both a functional and technical type of guy, and helping our customers out on a daily basis with different projects they have. G'day, Sean. Next, we have Kathy. Kathy is a payroll expert of ours who has implemented Exo Payroll many times, as well as doing support across the ERP spectrum for Exo. G'day, Kathy. We have Michelle. Michelle has joined us relatively recently from one of our customers. Michelle's got a really strong IT background as well as ERP software, and already working very closely with our clients on support type projects. G'day, Michelle. And I'm not sure who of our tech teams are on the chat, but we have a development team at Momentum who do a lot of the development of our add-ons, report writing, data conversions, dashboards, workflow type stuff. And we've got Steve, Mac, and Akshit in our technical team. So if any of you guys are available, just turn your camera on. There's Akshit. G'day. I'll just pause there if any of our customers have any questions of the guys while we've got them all on the screen. Feel free to pop something, put your hand up or pop something in the chat, or just unmute and fire away. Okay, we'll move on to next. One of the things that we would encourage customers to really think about, and it's we call it a health check, but you can really just call it a catch-up. Businesses change over time, and the software that you use should evolve with you, but doesn't necessarily do so automatically. Now, we talk to customers every day who have introduced a new product or a new service that they do, have a change to their business process, may have created a new company or divisions or departments within an existing company, or have new people, new owners or investors, or a new bank or a new accountant that's got different methodology or different reporting that they want. Now, any or all of those things might require some changes to your system. And, you know, every day we talk to people who are doing things manually that could be done more elegantly with a little bit of working with team momentum. So those types of things might just require some fine tuning of Exo for you. And that comes in many forms. So it can be refining the configuration to suit the changed business, whether that's creating new branches or cost centers, or changing security profiles, so different people have got different things defaulting for them in the correct way, or restricting information. Use of Exo alerts, again, that's a really strong feature of Exo that for some businesses is not known about or not utilised to enforce business rules or processes. So if somebody's raising a purchase order, what's the rule? Could be you can't have any items on the purchase order if they don't have a price. Or there are certain fields that are mandatory to complete, and if they're not completed, you shouldn't be able to proceed. So Exo alerts really provide that improved control to keep people doing things the right way and reduce the rework of corrections if they do things the wrong way. So that's something I would encourage you to give some thought to. Often things can be automated. So automation of certain tasks or events or email alerts or even reports. So reports can be scheduled through a Momentum add-on called our report schedule. So any of those things tend to save people time, make things more efficient. And other things that we do commonly is customizations. Now, in Exo, we can do customization in certain ways. Most things we can do just using standard features of Exo, using extra fields and workflow and alerts, but there are cases where we use SQL programming at the database level to make Exo do things it wouldn't ordinarily do. They're often done by what's called an SQL trigger, which says when something happens, do something else or update something. So customization and use of add-ons is a great way of filling gaps or enhancing the functionality that you currently have to get the functionality that you ideally want. We do that a lot. and obviously training and documentation. So change of people, there is often an erosion of knowledge. If someone leaves and a new person comes, they might get shown certain things, but not necessarily the real hints and tricks that can make things more efficient. Now you can talk to our team about any of those things anytime you like. We're happy just to have, we commonly just have general planning chats. So what are you planning? What's in the budget or on the roadmap for your business in the next 3, 6, 12 months? And what might we be able to do in Exo to help accommodate that and bring it along on the journey that your business is going on? All of those things also help your business keep your unique selling proposition, competitive advantage, point of difference, however you would describe it, as well as gaining efficiency. So, you know, having things customized so that they look exactly the way that what you want them to look, whether it's, you know, your branding on emails or documents that are coming out of the system, or just the ways that you want to price or operate to make your business unique. To me, those are the real benefits and value adds that an ERP can and should do for you. Now we have schedules where we contact all of our customers on a cyclical basis to have those types of chats, but you can reach out to us at any time and talk to one of our consultants about things that you might want to achieve. So we're approaching end of financial year, and there's things to do in Exo relating to financial year. Now, most of our customers have been using Exo for quite some time, so it's not typically new information, but obviously many of our customers have got new people or just want to check in with us on what's the right thing to do at month end. We are running a webinar on the 30th, which will go through in very granular detail what you need to do. At a high level, the things that you must do in Exo Business is you need to roll end of financial year at the end of June, either on the 30th or the 1st of July, in order to start processing in the new financial year. Now, if you're used to other MYOB software like AccountWrite, that is a very different thing in Exo. The new year does not exist in Exo until you roll the financial year. It doesn't mean you can't then do anything in the previous financial year. You can still leave those periods open and post creditor transactions or whatever back into June, and Exo will do adjusting entries to profit. If you're using the fixed asset register, you must also roll that. And we do have an end of financial year good practice guide and checklist on our website that you can refer to, which takes you through the key things that are needed. But in a nutshell, those are the two most important things. Payroll, a few extra things to do. Each year, obviously the ATO and the Australian government introduce changes. So there's always changes to tax scales. There are often other ATO changes. This year there are changes to super minimum thresholds and a few other things. That requires an upgrade of your Exo payroll software, and that upgrade needs to occur prior to you starting your first pay in the new tax year. So each year we do this, nothing new to us. We'll schedule the upgrades with you so that they do occur prior to your first pay in July. For some businesses that are on monthly pays, that could be late July. For businesses that are on weekly pays, that will be early July, and we'll schedule them in for you. The payroll upgrade process is a relatively simple process where effectively the upgrade is downloaded, a little process runs that upgrades the database and the software, and the new tax tables are automatically applied to a new tax year pay. And if you're still completing a previous tax year pay, the tax tables will be correct for that one as well. So again, we've got a payroll good practice guide on our website, and our consulting team will be running the webinar for any customers who are interested on the 30th. In addition to that, if you just want to reach out to our support team about what do I need to do at year end, then feel free. I would caution about rolling into financial year too early. We have had a couple of clients do that, and it then caused them problems when they were trying to, for example, process a creditor payment run that really related to June, even though they rolled the system into July. So you need to kind of do it at the right time and not too early and not too late. On the topic of end of financial year, MYOB have offered quite generous discounts on Exo licenses. So for businesses that order additional licenses prior to the 30th, you could receive a discount of anywhere between 20 and 40%, depending on how many licenses you purchase. And those can be any kind of license, an Exo business license or a job costing license or a CRM or a bundle of a few. You would be entitled to increasing discounts for that. So if it's in your budget and you are running short of licenses at times, then it would be certainly worth taking advantage of that. And we're offering also a discount off any Momentum add-on that customers purchase prior to 30 June. Okay, and next section we're going to talk about a bit of software that MYOB are introducing into the market called MYOB Workforce Management. And it is a cloud-based solution. So there'll be some obvious questions potentially in your minds, and we've got a Q&A slide for this that I'll talk to in a moment. So firstly, what is workforce management? Workforce management is a solution that covers, I guess, the end-to-end life cycle of an employee, not just payroll. And MYOB Workforce Management covers right at the start, onboarding, through to rostering and award interpretation, management of leave with employee self-service, time capture, again, related back to that roster, and then updating through to payroll. It also has some business intelligence and reporting in there. Now, it's a cloud-based solution that's being released late June, early July. We don't have an exact date, but there's already a couple of pilot sites up and running with workforce management. Next slide, please, Morgan. Not all software suits every business, and the key industries that MYOB Workforce Management is strong at is businesses that have a shift-based workforce. So you're needing to have people assigned to shifts, could be in different locations or in different teams at different times, and really improve the management of that. We see businesses all the time doing it in Outlook calendars or Excel spreadsheets, etc. But making it part of a solution that not only handles the rostering, informing people of what shift they're working on, and also capturing the time against that, then automates the overtime and award and allowance calculations through to payroll. It's very strong on those blue collar type industries, so people in manufacturing, construction, as well as hospitality, retail and healthcare. Ideal for businesses that have team members working in different locations, which could be different stores, different sites, different offices. And also have dynamic demand of labour based on seasonable variables or particularly large projects. So onboarding new people can be a very time-consuming, laborious manual process, and the onboarding in MYOB Workforce Management is quite slick. and also casual or part-time workforces where, most people or many people are paid based on the hours they work rather than a fixed salary. Next slide. Now, without going into detailed features, we just wanted to bring the workforce management to your awareness and point out a few things that would be relevant for somebody using MYOB Exo and answer some questions that you might ask. So first is, when's workforce management available? Due very shortly, July. Will it run on your server or a server? Answer is no. It's a cloud-based application which runs in your browser or on a mobile device. If I'm running Exo, can I use MYOB Workforce Management? The answer to that is yes, with a but. The but being that workforce management would mean that you would be replacing your Exo payroll with MYOB Advanced Payroll. Now, MYOB Advanced Payroll is a cloud-based payroll application that is quite sophisticated, handles larger payrolls like Exo Payroll does, and is cloud-based. So the MYOB Workforce Management only integrates with Advanced Payroll, and if you did want to use Workforce Management, you would also need to use MYOB Advanced Payroll. Now, I guess the follow-up question to that is, could I use MYOB Advanced Payroll but continue to use MYOB Exo for my ERP, financials, CRM, job costing? And the answer to that is yes. So can I use MYOB Advanced Payroll plus Workforce Management with MYOB Exo as my ERP? Yes. They're predominantly separate applications anyway, so even Exo Payroll and Exo Business are two separate applications that are installed on the server, and their integration points typically are the journal that gets produced by Exo Payroll at the end of each pay. And for some businesses that are using our job costing module and want their timesheets integrated with Exo Payroll, we would need to do similar, where job costing timesheets are potentially imported into Advanced Payroll. So short answer is yes, there would be some differences how the GL journal would work. And if the job costing timesheet integration is needed, that's something that Momentum would do for you. Next question is, does the MYOB Workforce Management integrate with Exo ERP and or Exo's job costing module? Answer to that is no. It integrates with Advanced Payroll, and really the key benefits are around the payroll process. So onboarding of new employees, really good. Rostering and shift setup, really good with award interpretation, so automatic calculation of overtime, automatic allocation of allowances, e.g. a meal allowance if you work after a certain time of day, etc. And that all goes through into the Advanced Payroll to complete the pay process. In future, MYOB will be integrating Workforce Management with the Projects module of MYOB Advanced ERP. And so depending on your needs, that might be a discussion we have at that point. And if you'd like to see a demonstration of Workforce Management or as well as a demonstration of MYOB Advanced Payroll, because you can only use the Workforce Management if you have the Advanced Payroll, we can provide a demonstration to you. So I'll just pause there. Is there any questions on the workforce management section we just talked about? No problem. Next section is talking about pathways to cloud. And the reason why we're talking about that is it's a thing that's happening around the world, as most people would know. Every individual is using cloud applications of some kind. and most businesses these days are using cloud software of some kind, whether it's banking software, Office 365, LinkedIn, or various other business applications. And that's something that's really accelerated in the past 12 months, partly due to COVID. And it's also something that MYOB and ourselves have been aware of as being an acceleration over time across the market. In reality, from an accounting software perspective, Xero probably led that charge ahead of MYOB, but MYOB have since taken major steps to have cloud-based applications. The other thing that drives moving to cloud is the cost of maintaining your own IT infrastructure. And so that's what I want to talk about first. If we can have the next slide, Morgan. Now, if you do a bit of research or Googling on different types of cloud, there are lots of technical terms. And the little graphic on the left, I guess, simplifies them for me. So you've got on-site, where you have a server in your building at your office or in your computer room, and that's what your Exo and other applications, Exchange for your email, etc., are running on. Beyond that, you have two options as far as how you might move from an on-premise or on-site server to a cloud environment for Exo. So you have IaaS, which is infrastructure as a service, or platform as a service, PaaS. And really they're similar things, except more of it is managed by your hosting provider or IT company. Many of your existing IT companies probably already do hosting. It's pretty common because as businesses have purchased less servers, they've needed to move with the times and provide hosting options. So infrastructure as a service is where you might have access to a hosted server, and the hosting provider, your IT company or a dedicated hosting company, would provide the server itself, storage, backups, and maybe virtualization. Virtualization is the concept where on one server, multiple virtual servers can be created, one of which might handle the email, one of which might handle people's remote logins, and one of which applications might run. Platform as a service is very similar, probably provided by the same company, but they manage more and you manage less. So they're handling middleware, networking. It's a much more managed environment. The only thing you're managing, if at all, is applications and data. Now, data could be documents, Word documents, Microsoft Office stuff, spreadsheets, where everything's on the server, nobody's saving anything on their local PC or laptop, and you're kind of protected that if there's a major outage, you've got backups because that's all handled by your service provider. And that's an environment that Exo, both IaaS and PaaS, is an environment that Exo will run in quite happily. And we, in fact, do the same, and many of our customers do. Next slide, please, Morgan. So in terms of pathways to cloud, I may be preaching to the converted already. Some of you are probably already using hosted servers, but the reality is that on-site, on-premise servers are becoming less prevalent. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One is, the capex to replace or upgrade a server at the end of its useful life is significant, depending on size of business. Could be anywhere between $30,000 and $100,000 for a reasonable spec server or servers to run your business into the next 3 to 5 years. And in our experience, you are at a higher risk of ransomware and virus attacks with a on-site, on-premise server in your business compared to a hosting service. The reason for that is the hosting provider, as part of their infrastructure, has usually invested quite heavily in protection against outside attacks, whether they're brute force attacks, ransomware, viruses, antivirus. And the other is the backup, and the ability to recover from a backup is superior. Now, we've had several customers who've experienced ransomware attacks. All of their data on their server got encrypted, and they weren't able to recover from a backup because somebody had forgotten to replace the tape or things like that. And it caused major disruption and major cost. We haven't had a customer who's on a hosting service, certainly the one that we partner with, who's experienced a ransomware attack at all. Now, hosting services is you're effectively renting somebody else's server. Now, there are big and small hosting providers. Google, Amazon, Microsoft Azure all have platforms like that. And there are medium and smaller hosting providers. And I wouldn't say Momentum has a preference. If your existing IT company has a strong solution or experience in that area, then you could have Exo and all of your Microsoft Office stuff running on a hosted server, and you may already have that. If you don't, and you're getting close to needing to replace your existing server, then we'd be happy to have a conversation with you about our partnership with AppServe Secure ISS, who do hosting. I think we have roughly 15 to 20 clients using their hosting server. And all that means is you're logging on usually through a remote desktop, and you're then operating normally as if you were using your PC or laptop. Exo and all of your emails and things are working in that environment. So that's, I guess, some of the considerations around, why would you move? The things that are relevant is cost, risk, and time. I would say, in my own experience, hosting is not necessarily cheaper than a new server, because very few people just, pay for the server. It's usually financed, so it's a monthly payment over 3 to 5 years. The key difference is the flexibility. So if you buy a server, you're probably going to buy something that's bigger than what you need now, so that in 3 years' time, it's still big enough and it's not going to fall over. So you're using capacity, you're not using all the capacity at first. And then towards the end of its life, you're probably overusing its capacity. So having your own server is not as flexible. Having a hosting provider, it's their problem. If you have 10 new people in your business in a month's time, it's up to them to throw more resources at your server or move you onto a different server within their hosting platform and make sure that you're still getting good performance. So the flexibility of hosting is, to me, significantly superior to having an on-premise server. You just pay for some more users. Same with security backups, antivirus, keeping all of that up to date, staying ahead of new threats. That's their business, that's their core business. It's maybe not your core business to be doing that yourself. The other thing to consider is I would be careful about just having Exo and nothing else on your hosted server, because, for example, Exo often integrates with your email system, Microsoft Office, particularly Excel, and maybe other applications. So if you are planning on having a hosted solution for Exo, you need to think about those things and consider whether everything, or at least all of the important things that might integrate with Exo, are part of that hosting environment. Next slide, please. Then the fourth option is software as a service. And obviously software as a service is a different application. So software as a service is something that runs in a browser. You pay by the month. Exo is not a cloud or SaaS application, and it's not going to be made into one. MYOB have an alternative ERP called Advanced, which is a cloud ERP, but it is not Exo in the cloud. It's a separately designed and developed ERP with many similarities, but also many differences. So we don't have and haven't had many customers move from Exo to Advanced. Over time, we think that will happen a bit more. So if you're asking yourself, should you move to Advanced? Well, the answer is it depends. And if you're happy with Exo, including your infrastructure, then we don't think there's any need to change. If you're happy with Exo, but you've got the challenge of IT environments, then I would certainly be investigating the hosting infrastructure as a service option. And if you believe Exo is not working for you or is not as well as you'd like, then that's a conversation to have with us. You may believe that you've exhausted your return on investment in Exo, or you may believe that it doesn't do certain things, and it may in fact do those things, but it hasn't been configured yet. So we do talk to customers about an Exo improvement project where a number of things might be delivered as a way of getting much more value out of Exo, and that is a much smaller investment than changing your ERP. Having said that, if your overall business strategy is cloud SaaS software and you think you need significantly more functionality than what Exo offers, then obviously we are happy to talk to you about what Advanced does differently. Next slide, Morgan. And this is the final slide. We'll move on to quick Q&A because we just want to make sure that we give you all opportunity to ask questions. But improving Exo typically is a considerably lower investment than changing to a new ERP, being MYOB Advanced. And there are some pros and cons both ways, of course. If you stay with Exo, your people already know it. Enhancing it just means it gets better. And often we find training and better utilisation and a bit of customisation can make a huge difference to what people think of Exo currently. Add-ons can make a major difference. Some of the ones we talked about earlier, accounts payable automation, accounts receivable automation, reporting can make a big difference. Business intelligence or reporting tools, a number of our Exo clients are using either Alchemex or Focus or BI for Cloud and are able to do more themselves from a reporting perspective, as well as some of our add-ons, whether they're Approval Advantage or our auditing tool, etc. So that's how we think about whether businesses should move from Exo either to cloud in a hosting environment. We definitely think you should be thinking about that. Moving from Exo to Advanced, we don't necessarily think you should be doing that unless it's the right thing as a part of your overall business strategy. Okay, Q&A. Really what we want to encourage is that any questions at all that you would like to ask about Exo, as well as if there's any particular new features or enhancements that you would like to see. Any of those we promise we will log into MYOB's ideas portal so that they go into the roadmap evaluation process. So I'll just pause there. You've probably heard enough from me, and please feel free to pop any questions in the chat or unmute yourself and ask away. While I'm paused, I often find any webinar I sit on, very few people ask questions. Of course, you can always email us or call us with any questions that you have or any enhancement suggestions you'd like to see. So we, of course, won't take it personally if you don't ask any questions in the chat today. And I'll thank you all now for attending. I hope you found it informative. We're also interested in your feedback. Are we covering the right types of content? Because this is something that we want to continue doing, but we also, it's important to us to make sure that we're talking about things that are of interest to you. Thanks, everybody.